Well, g'day everyone. Wanted to talk to you today about a lens that Viltrox sent me. So what I thought I'd do today is I'd show you a real shoot with this, and therefore you can see just the real images. And really, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what charts say or everything else. You have to sort of base this by what you see in the images that they capture. So I'm going to take you through those images and give you a quick look at what they're like and, you know, my thoughts about it all and how it went. So let's do that now. Let's have a look at the images in Capture One. Now, I'm only going to show the details. The bride doesn't want any images shown, so I can't show those of her. She's, you know, very sort of private, and she doesn't want that shown, but she did give me permission to show all the behind the sort of scenes stuff like this. We always try and capture as many details as possible, and from memory, the color rendering of this is very, very good. Kerry always sets these up on tables and things like that, so she's the one that always does the sort of setups, and then I usually just light it and take the shot. But this was basically just with a light above it, a little bit to the right, just to give it a bit of forward light through here. But you can see the rendering's quite nice. Now, if you look over the side here, you'll see that it's with the Viltrox 35mm f1.8. This shot with the Sony A9. Some of them were shot with the A7S III, and it's ISO 100 and 1/25 of a second, and it's shot at f2.8. Now you can see the rendering of this is really quite good. If I enlarge this up, I can't go too far because it's only a 24 megapixel file size. If I had an A7R4 or something like that, I'd be able to go, you know, like crazy. But you can see that the detail is actually quite good in this. I mean, obviously I could add some sharpening in post. You know, it's held up quite well. I did notice that when you're looking at it though, that these edges definitely are softer than the center. So the center of this lens is very, very sharp, and I'm really happy with the center. And that to me is usually all that really matters. I don't really mind it falling off a little bit on the edges. So that's not really an issue for me. Only you can make a judgment about if you're happy enough with that. The color rendering of this is really nice. I'm really happy with that aspect of it. I took a second one down here, which is much closer, so you'll sort of be able to see here the detail in the flower that's through there. You can also see the fall off. This again was shot at 2.8. I always like to shoot landscape and also portraiture. It's good for their albums, so if you do it that way, they've got a great selection of which way that they can go. Remember, these haven't been retouched, so I'm sort of showing you these as they actually are. Again, you know, the detail in the center is really quite nice. I'm very, very happy with it. This was the same shot, but it just blew in a little bit closer, and again you can see in the center there that it's very nice. You also see the lovely fall off. It does have a nice fall off. There is a bit of a fringe that you get with it that you can sort of see through here, and I'll talk about the chromatic aberrations a little bit later, but the fall off, you know, in that respect is sort of a little bit harder than what I'm used to with my GM lenses. But honestly, I mean, looking at it, I'd be quite happy, and I will be submitting these, so I'm really quite happy with how they are. Again, you can see the lovely fall off that you've got here as well. This was shot with the Sony A9 again. This was aperture f1.8, and it's 1/25 of a second, ISO 125, and it does give lovely fall off if you're looking through here though. It looks really nice. Much better, in fact, than when I was doing that other shot with the flowers there. This is really soft and lovely, and I'm sure she'll really like this. Shoes as well. Like I said, I like to grab as many of these detailed shots as I can possibly get. If you look in the center through here, like I said, without sharpening done, this was also shot at f2.8. Without sharpening done, this is really acceptable. Add a little bit of sharpening on this and it would look really quite nice. Again, the fall off is quite good on this one. I'm quite happy with how that looks. There is a little bit of an edge there. You know, like I said, I'm quite happy with how that is. There is sort of some banding here in the edges, but this was in the wall itself. I remember looking at that when the image was taken. I also like doing these high key type shots where, you know, this was one of the little flower girls' dresses, and I love putting that against the window or something and really brightening the images up. I found that brides particularly like these really light, airy type shots. So this was also shot at f2.8, 1/25 of a second. I grabbed a photo of the bride's dress here just to sort of show you the detail that we're sort of getting there in the center, which is really nice. I mean, it's, you know, if I blow this up, it's actually really quite good. The rendering is quite nice there. I wanted to take a close-up one here as well to show you how it looks up close. And this is what I always like to do, is try and get as many of these details as I can, because the brides pay a lot for their weddings and they love to see as many of their bits and pieces as they can for later on. They don't always include these bits in their album, but you know, it's just nice to provide these sort of things. Also, then I wanted to grab some cars, and I thought this would be great to show some of the details that you're getting and how sharp the lens is in the center of with this lens. You can sort of see in here when we're looking that it really is quite sharp if you're looking at it. I mean, it's certainly sharp enough without me adding sharpening in, and I could certainly add sharpening in later on. This was shot at f5.6 and it was ISO 640 and 1/500th of a second. What I did, there was 3 cars on the day and I wanted to grab all of them, and I thought what a great opportunity also to show how they look with this lens as well. So I've got a few of these images that I'll show you coming up here as well. So they had this old Holden, and then it also had this GTS Monaro as well here, which is a really nice muscle car that's coming up. Again, the rendering colours and everything are really nice on this, and I'm really happy with how this looks. I tried to get different angles too also. I'll try and grab the front and I'll try and grab the back, the headlights, wheels, everything else too. The groom particularly asked me to do this because I think it was going to be a favour for the people that supplied the cars, so I have taken quite a few as well. This is the other car that was there. This is also one of the other Holdens that was there. I think, well, it's Holden here. It's not a Holden in the States. But again, I like to show some different angles that this gives you. This is where, you know, I'll try and grab a few of the details of the cars that are actually there as well. You know, if you're looking at these overall, I'm really happy with how this looks. You can see how sharp in the center this actually is. It's really sharp in the center. Let's just keep going down. Again, this is from the Monaro that I wanted to grab up nice and close. This was the Holden that I wanted to grab up nice and close as well. You can see me here in the background. I'm actually there, and you can also see me leaning down through here as well. And you can see here that I wanted to show this image because of distortion. There is some distortion in this. Now this has automatic correction that was applied on Capture One as it came in. So this is how it looks when it was brought in from Capture One. But there is a little bit of distortion, and I'll show you that in a couple of the other images as well. There is a little bit of fringing too, I noticed. Through here you can see there's a fraction of the red fringing that's out through here, but you could control that quite easily with the sliders and things like that through Lightroom or Capture One if you wanted to change that later on. So there's definitely fringing, particularly on the edges. So it's just something that you've got to be aware about. I don't notice really anything in the middle looking at it too much. It's much better in the center than it is on the edges, but the you know, the lines are reasonably straight, like I said, from that automatic capture that we got from importing these into Capture One. Again, I wanted to show this one as well. I wanted to just check that fringing again, just to see in the center, it's not bad at all. There's a little bit of red fringing over here. It's definitely more on the edges through here. I can see a little bit of fringing and aberrations through there on the edges. So it looks like the center part is really quite good, which, like I said, to me is I'm more than happy for it. You can see the rendering in this too. It's grabbed a lovely exposure with everything there. I'm really happy with how everything's shown up, considering that these aren't really retouched at all or had any editing done. This was just one I wanted to grab overall. And again, I think if you look at this too, you can sort of see that the center is really quite sharp, but as you come over to the edges, you can see that it definitely falls off on the edges. So this is where you can see that it's not quite as sharp on the edges as it is in the center, certainly, where it actually is very sharp in the middle. And again, you can sort of see this as the fall off that you're getting there. But like I said, if you're dealing with this, looking at the image like this, if they printed it out like this, this is more than acceptable. So, you know, I'm really quite happy with, well, I'm very happy with how it looks, and I certainly would use it. This was just another shot that I took as well. Again, another one. Now, I wanted to put this one in because you could see here that this is one area where you can see that there is some distortion in this lens. You can see it's sort of shifting in through this area here and also through that area there. So, look, there's definitely distortion there, but it's probably nothing that I wouldn't be able to fix if I wanted to start using keystone controls. I could probably straighten this all up. You know, I want to show you basically as it's just been imported in because I thought that's more important than showing you another way. Now, what about autofocus? Now, I found the autofocus in still mode was very good. It did slow down a little bit when it started to get dark, but I would expect that in this price range. You're talking about a $400 lens here, but it was really quite fast, particularly during the daylight when I was using it. And it was very good. The other thing was it was great for the eye autofocus, but once I turned to video, it was a little bit slower, and I'll show you some results from this so you can have a look. It's easier if you look at it from that aspect. Now, I didn't do it with walking backwards and forwards, but I did just show you how it was grabbing the eye as I was switching between some objects, so we'll have a look at those now. Okay, so when you look here, you can see that it's got the eye detection turned on. Now, I've quickly moved over to the other model, and I'm moving around the room, and you can see how fast it's actually gaining focus. Now, this is on stills mode. So this is if I was taking just images, but I just wanted to move around quite quickly and then just sort of see how fast it would lock on. So now let's look at video. You'll see here when I shift to the other model that it's much slower in the way that it racks in, but I think it actually looks quite cinematic. You don't want it to be too fast when it's doing this. So, you know, I think it's quite acceptable, but it's definitely slower than what you have with, say, something like your G Master lenses like my 24 GM. Let's have a look at some of the images of this lens and also the specifications that it has, the key features. This is from the B&H website. You can see the lens itself is made very well. The build quality is really nice on this, particularly if you think of the price that you're paying for this. You can see it's a 55mm filter thread that's on this. If you look down here, you can see the aperture ring that you're looking at there. You can see also the A where it's on the automatic section. If it's on auto, then you can control it through your camera, which is a nice feature. I do love having that ability to be able to do that. Now, if we look down here at the key features of this lens, obviously it's E-mount, it's full frame, so you can use it on a APS-C camera, and you get around about a 50-odd-millimeter lens. It's also it has nano coating and resistance coating. The minimum focus distance is 15.7 inches. It has internal focus design. The filter size is 55mm. The aperture range is f1.8 to f16. It has 2 ED elements and 2 aspheric elements. It has nano coating and resistance coating. Now, the autofocus motor in this is an STM focus motor. It is very, very silent. In fact, I couldn't hear it at all. So what do I think? I think the lens itself, for $400, if you can't afford to get something like you know, a Sony lens or one of the more expensive lenses that are out there, this is really acceptable. And this is why I wanted to show you the real images that came out of this camera, because I thought that would be a better way of showing you than, you know, sort of discussing other features about it. And I'm really happy with it. Yeah, it was a little bit slow for video, so I suppose you'd have to take that into account. But if you do like a smooth transition between the, you know, what you're focusing on and then what it's going to rack to, it's actually quite nice. Overall, though, in photos, the autofocus is very, very fast, particularly in decent light. If the light drops a little bit, it does start to get a little bit harder to keep focus. You know, that's just what I suppose you'd expect in a lens at this price. The lens for me was very, very quiet, so I couldn't hear any lens focusing noises at all, which is great. And overall, I'm very, very happy with how this worked. And I'm certainly happy enough with the images to give these to the bride and not have to worry about the quality that's there. If you have any questions about this, let me know down below and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Thank you so much, Viltrox, for sending me this lens. Really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it. Apart from that, everyone, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.